the first steps of your financial life. I want to give you guys some core principles of what this course is going to be about and what this school is going to be about. But before we get into that, I need to tell you about why I've done many of the things that I've done in my life. I grew up extremely poor, and I came up with this great idea to start companies so I can get stuff wholesale for personal use. This desire, this concept literally drove the whole process, because when you're poor, you want a lot of stuff. You see people with nice stuff. You just want it, but you can't get it. In my childlike mind, I decided to form a business for the simple practice of getting wholesale pricing. And this is one of the things I did, which also led to me getting in the storage auction business, because my dollar would go so much further than if I bought new. And through all of this desire that came from a space of lack, and I didn't understand that I was moving myself towards a abundance mentality. And it was something that kind of happened without me realizing it. So the first principle of the school is manage money, make more money. Not save, not become pathologically cheap, but manage money, make more money. Those are the two core philosophies of the school. Because just saving for the sake of saving, you'll lose money due to inflation and other eroding factors to the dollar. So you need to also accelerate your income, which is something we'll discuss later in the course. Manage your money, make more money, and accelerate your income. These are the foundational philosophies of many things that you'll see, many things you'll experience, and they're going to be very, very different from a lot of the advice that you will see out there, because I've seen people who have disparaged Grant Cardone. I love Grant Cardone. Don't be like Grant Cardone. Don't be like Gary Vee. But many of these people who are really successful did exactly what Grant Cardone and Gary Vee said. Work hard and then practice delayed gratification. My only problem with Gary Vee, and I'll say it clean, if I met him, I'd say it to his face, is you had a tremendous head start, but everything else is legit. And that head start made a huge difference. And this is another foundation that we're going to talk about in this course, setting up your kids to experience financial success. We're going to talk about many of the things that you should be doing as a parent, and saving money for college is not one of them. I know that's very, very controversial. If your child is able to start a business at 16 years old, and let's say it takes 10 years to become a millionaire, your kid's 26 years old. Your kid is very young, and your kid has the ability to live a long and fruitful life. Because this is something else you didn't know. Rich people tend to outlive poor people. Let me say this again. Rich people tend to outlive poor people. They say money can't buy happiness, but it can buy good health. It can buy great food. It can buy a great neighborhood. It can buy a proper education. It could provide a lot of things. I would say it's right up there with oxygen. Essentially, what I want to give you guys are things that have worked for me over a course of decades. This isn't something that just worked for a year and petered out. Let's take one of the courses. One of the courses is why you should buy name brand stuff. And this is a philosophy. It's not just about buying name brand stuff just for the sake of buying it, but it's a fundamental philosophy that I derived from my storage auction days, because I learned something. Let's say I got this shirt at Walmart, paid $20 for it. I'm not going to be able to sell this for much more. Let's say the same shirt, Gucci. It was made by Gucci. Same exact, same design, but it was made by Gucci. I was probably spend $300, $400, but I could sell that for $200, $300. Or in the case of Bathing Ape, I could sell it for more than what I paid for it. Mind blowing, I know. So we're going to get into these core philosophies of why you should buy name brand, and you should disavow cheap stuff. You should disavow these things because they don't help you in your quest for a fulfilling happy, well-organized financial life. So those are the foundations, and we're going to get into some more advanced stuff. We're going to get into some things that I've never discussed here on YouTube. Like, I've talked about accelerated income, but I never really got into it. We're going to talk about some kind of esoteric money management systems, because once again, there's going to be 4 or 5 tiers to this school, and it's going to be something for everyone. Like I said, I've got millionaires who watch this channel. I know this for a fact. And until this new school came, I didn't really have anything for them. Wherever you are, like the first course is for the common man. 4 payments of $100. I'm probably not ever going to change that. So you can go ahead and get yourself a good basic understanding of finances and making money. And then you can move to the next level. And then you can move to the next level, and you can move to the next level. Because what we're going to do here is going to be life-changing. Because these principles, they changed my life. They changed the life of my child. They are solid, but they're not common. And I'll give you a great example. How many of you have heard of Ray Dalio? The last few years, people have been laughing at him because he said it. He even wrote a book about it, these economic boom and bust. And he put his money where his opinion was. And his fund, Pure Alpha's up 15%, while other people are losing money. 15%. And we're in a recession. Let me get this really clear for you. We're in a recession. It hasn't spread throughout the economy yet, but I guarantee you it's going to happen. And by employing these simple yet hard to execute concepts, you can prepare yourself to go through the 3 stages. The first stage is financial freedom, which means you free yourself from working set hours. The second stage is rich, where you make 10 to 20 times average income. So if you achieve stage 1 and it's stage 2, then stage 3 is all but assured if you practice practical, sound money management tips. You can get rich. And it's a travesty because much of the financial education out there and the financial advice isn't designed to make you wealthy. Isn't even designed to make you financially independent. It is designed to keep brokers and some of these hedge funds in business because these commissions are obscene. And this is where most of your profit goes, paying their commissions. I feel that the best way for you to experience, let's say you only get to financial independence, which means that you make more than enough money to live, but you don't have to work a job. That within itself can change your life. And then you get to the point where you're making 10 to 20 times average income, which is $28 to $32,000 per year per individual. That's life changing. You're not even a millionaire, and that is life changing. And then stage 1, stage 2, and you get to stage 3, you prepare your great grandkids to have a wonderful financial life once you reach stage 3. So that's it. You can go below, you can enroll in the course. The first block of the school is going to be done this week. My goal is to get it done by Sunday. Then we're going to move into phase 2. And my goal is to get that done next week. Then we're going to move into phase 3, which is $3.99 per month. And everyone that is in H undergrad, you are automatically enrolled in that if you've paid your monthly payment. And I think there's a few people who've paid in full, so you will get it as well. And then we'll get into these other things. The way that I'm going to do this is one thing at a time until I get it finished. And then you could just come in there, get the information, then scale up. Like I said, you can sign up for the 5 checking blueprint. That's free. So anyone can sign up for that. And just to not keep doing all this stuff, because it gets confusing. I get a lot of people. I'll give you an example. When I did H undergrad and I did the art of holding, for literally 3 months, I put out a code, email people And many folks still didn't get it. And they were like, hey, I didn't know, get this, because they didn't open up their email. So then we get into this. Did they get the email? Did the email go into their spam folder? So with that, we're doing a new email list. So if you're on the old email list, I am not moving that old email list to the new thing. So you have to go below and get on the 5 checking account, because that's going to put you on the new email list. And you have to opt in. You're going to get an email from my system that's saying, hey, can this guy send you some emails? And if you don't answer that email or click onto it and respond and confirm, you will not get any emails. I had the same problem with the text notification list, and that will be coming back too. The text notification list will be coming back. So there's a lot of things that are, well, maybe, because once I figured out how I can get away with this, there's 2 ways to skin a cat, because this will be dealing with finance and money, and typically they don't want their systems used to notify people about credit and stuff. All right, but let's see. A lot of people watching football today. A lot of people are watching football, and this is something else too. And I think people are going to self-qualify, because whenever I put up some drama-loaded topic, I get double the response. When I talk about the things that you have to do to really make money, not a lot of people show up. It's been like that for years. I'm over it. Let's see what's going on, people. Happy New Year's to everybody. Ori, thanks for the $1. Yeah, because most people need to start with the basics. Even there are some millionaires who need to start with basics. Real management either grows a business or kills a business, pretty much. What's up, people? Short change. Yeah, that's going to be really interesting. Thank you, your money management and my hustle. I ain't worried about possible tax delays. On that note, your financial life should be set up that when you get that tax money, it should be able to go into an account and you can think about what you need to do with it. Typically, many people are in a situation where that once that money comes in, they got to spend it because they got bills to pay, they got cars to fix or cars to buy. So they're in a state of perpetual lack. So when they get all this money, and for some people, they're getting significant returns back, 9, 15, 20K. That's a lot of money that you could do some other stuff if your basic financial education was in play. So thanks, Short Change. What's up? Well, once again, we'll have to talk about that, because essentially you can't send text for porn, credit, and financial stuff, which I find to be ridiculous, because Chase sends me text and they're a financial institution. So I think that was full of caca. Oh, thank you, Daniel. Chris Monroe, I don't know which is worse, cryptocurrency or the stock market. We will talk about that. One of the big things about cryptocurrency, and I believe in cryptocurrency, I don't believe that Bitcoin is going to be the dominant cryptocurrency going forward, is it's a long-term play. And the reason that people were buying it and it went crazy is because people thought they were going to get rich this year. And, they heard all about these Bitcoin millionaires, the Bitcoin Lambo. These were folks who got in really early and they practiced buy and hold. When I bought my Bitcoin, that's what, 80 cents? I held on to it for 8 years. Buy and hold. So if you bought some Bitcoin, like I said, I don't know. I really don't know what's going on with that one. But if you bought some cryptocurrency that was like 80 cents and you held on to it for 15 years, and then it gets up to $100, you won. And that's what a lot of them are going to do. But people are expecting these fantastic outside over the top gains, and it's just not coming. Thank you, Diana. Pretty much, Rail. I will not be doing velocity banking. I will not be doing any of these poor people schemes. And I say they're poor people schemes because they tell you this is what rich people do. We will not be discussing velocity banking. We will not be discussing becoming your well, let me expand on that. Let's say you have a company and we'll talk about this a little future in future videos inside money, income, and profit. But let's say you have two corporations and you have this one corporation that is killing it, it's making money. So you'll take some of that money and you'll put it over here in this another five checking accounts or four checking accounts, whatever it may be, and you just move that money over there. You don't need that money. And then we'll talk about the difference between saving and investing. Saving just to save is not the best thing to do. You should be saving for a purpose and then get your money to make money. But I'm not going to get into any of these esoteric banking practices of businesses. Now, I can tell you what's about to come. The big banks are already starting to become very cautious with their lending portfolios. So if you have credit cards and let's say you have 10 credit cards and five or six are maxed out, you can expect your credit limits to be crammed down. That's what they're going to do because they're going to see you as risky. And we're going to talk about debt-free lifestyle. We're going to talk about minimalism versus abundance living. There's going to be one or two new channels. I'm thinking about calling it the Abundant Man and then one, the Abundant Lifestyle. Very, very different stuff. Let's see. All right. Seahawks are done. This is funny. Let's get back here a little bit. All right. Living delightful freedom. I have a Weber and there's a way to turn off so they don't confirm. Yes, there is. But let me hit you to something. I'll go way back. I used to literally put folks on my constant contact email list. My email rates were open rates were like 70%, 80%. What is happening is let's say you put someone on your email list, they haven't confirmed. Then they in turn don't open up. Let's say you send 10 emails and they only open up two. That will lower your deliverability rate. Now, if they confirm, every email you send them is going to go into their box because they said, hey, yeah, it's cool for me to send this email. So be very careful with that. We're going to talk about this. And I don't understand why it's even a question. Why would you have five different checking accounts at five different banks when you're going to be transferring money? I'm going to break this down in a five checking account blueprint so it'll forever be broken down. Thank you, Leslie, for the $5 super chat. Appreciate you. Silver New Jack, new to the channel, just got 20K bonus. I'm looking to invest in platinum. Um, you know, let's talk about investments. Only invest money in something you know and understand backwards and forward. So if you know platinum that well, go ahead. But if you don't know anything about platinum, never invest like, hey, gold's a good place to put your money. If someone tells you that and you've not investigated it and you've not done your own due diligence, don't do that. Oh, all kinds of stuff is happening, Diana. Guns, you know what? I went to a real estate seminar and they were talking about velocity banking. I found it strange they have an ML structure. Let's talk about esoteric banking means that are told to you that this is what the rich people do. Let's go with buying stocks that pay a dividend. Let's see. Let's take Wells Fargo. Hold on. Hold on. I don't know why they're trying to get me to do this. Fargo stock price. Okay. Now, Wells Fargo pays a dividend of 38.39 every quarter. They've paid a dividend the last 4 quarters. Now, this is per share. Each share is $47.95. So to get like $1,500 a year per your stock, you would need to own 1,000 shares of their stock, which would be about $50K that you would have to park into Wells Fargo stock, right? So when you're talking about the games that rich people are playing, you got someone that's going to come in and buy $2 million worth of Wells Fargo stock. That's a whole different ball game. What do we know from looking at income? 99% of the people in this country do not have $2 million to park in the stock. And what they're going to do is put this money in the stock. Then they're going to have some loser stock, and they're going to offset the gains from this stock and then only pay capital gains tax. See, you got to have big money to play these big games, because with this, let's just go ahead and say it. High returns require high risk. So you want a 300, a 400, a 500, 1,000% return. You're looking at staggering risk. Now, the games that wealthy people play do not incorporate staggering risk. Let's say you're broke Dick Danny, and what you do is you dollar cost this stock per month, which means you're going to put in $200. You're going to get 4 shares of Wells Fargo per month. And then you're going to let it ride. And letting it ride is whatever dividends you get, you're going to take those dividends and buy more Wells Fargo stock. So in 10 years, let's say you have 1,500 shares of Wells Fargo, right? Let's see what that's going to pay. So 1,500 times 0.38. It's 570 times 4. All right, I did that wrong. So you've got not 50, you got 15,000. My bad. You got 15,000 shares of Wells Fargo stock over 10 years. Now you have an asset that you can trade, play around with, times 0.38. That's 5,700 times 4. So that's $20,000 passive income that's coming in. And let's say while you were buying Wells Fargo, you bought some other banking stocks. Banking stocks usually pay dividends. You could have $50,000 a year coming in passively, just off 2 or 3 pieces of stock, three stocks. So we'll get into that, because one of the reasons that so many people don't do well is they buy the hot stock, they buy the classy stock, they buy the stock, then they want to, let's say they buy the stock at $30, and it goes up to 150, then they sell it, and then that's where they get their money. Well, if you collectively buy stocks and never sell, and you only buy stocks that pay dividends, by the time you reach retirement age, you could be getting 100K, 200K a year in dividends. That's the game that rich people play. They do not play velocity banking and stuff. They don't do it. Why? Because they have the money to play the big boy games. So, we're going to get into that because, like I said, I used to buy stocks and play that game. And if I were to buy stocks again, I would not buy any stock that doesn't pay a dividend. If it doesn't pay a dividend, it's not a buy for me. It's more of a buy and hold type situation. Let's see. I'm not messing with ride share. What's up, Shabazz? Appreciate you, reigning woman. Gino, bleep. You may not remember me, but I used to watch your videos when I worked at the Walmart corporate office. Never applied one of the tips into this month. Man, I made $800 selling free curb alert junk in 2 weeks. The money's out there. The question is, are you willing to go get it? So congratulations, Gino. Levinsky page. Yes, the Hustlers Kung Fu. Let's talk about that. That site costs me a monthly fee to run. I have to pay every month. And if I'm going to leave it up, I have to get payments. So that's why I'm selling individual courses. But yes, it will go up because below the video, I'm selling the audio book, 30 days to 2,500. And since I just posted that last night, I've already made what I need to make to pay the monthly fee. So it looks like that's going to be feasible. Steve Jameson, big boy games had a banker talking to me about overnight sweep accounts. You can get return in so many other places. Once again, if you had 20 to 30 liquid, I would agree with you. 90% of these people in the United States of America do not have $5,000 that's not part of their 401k. So once again, you need some money to play these games. And what we know, most folks don't have this. Because see, let's not talk in the abstract, like, yeah, if you do X, Y, and Z, you can get more gains. Let's talk about, have you done that and gotten more gains? As I tell you, there seems to be a huge disconnect between theory and practical application. Dana, thanks. Shabazz, I purchased 2,000 a month of stocks. I own stocks in 42 companies. Sounds like you're in the index fund. Pretty much, Farrell. Yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff with real estate. Shabazz, are you day trading or you buying and hold? Because another thing that happens is, like, you put out, made $500 in 1 hour. Was that a buy and trade? Was that options? Because see, once we start getting into options, puts, margin, that's a whole different ball game. So each sense. Another thing about stocks is that when the company does an IPO, you have accredited investors that get first spoils and everyone else gets the second scraps. True. Mark Scott, most people don't execute the basics of budgeting, but want to buy a shortcut to financial freedom. And that is one of the reasons that we're going to get into basic financial education. I agree with you 100%. And that's one of the things, because As long as you feel that you have enough time, as long as you feel that you can somehow buy a shortcut or hack your way to financial success, you're not going to put in the time, effort, and work that is required to be financially successful. Let's take this FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. That's a little bit of a misnomer because they're actually working, but financial independence is the first step to getting wealthy. What is financial independence? You have a business or something that pays you money that you don't have to work a regular schedule. So it frees up your time. Then the second stage is to get rich. Because see, you could be financially independent and not be a millionaire. And I'm gonna break it down for you. Let's say your grandmother left you a house, and then you bought a house, and you bought 3 houses. You just have 3 houses, and they're not even like $200,000 houses. They're just 3 regular houses in Nashville, not Nashville, but in Timbuktu or Kokomo, Indiana. So the houses are like 180, right? They're paid off. You get $1,500 a month collectively, averaging up all the rents. That's $4,500 per month, $50,000 per year minus 10%, which is 5 for taxes and stuff. You got a little capital gains taxes on that. So you're going to probably net out at $42,000. And you work a regular job. But because you have these rent properties, if you ever suffer a layoff, nothing goes unpaid because you got $4,500 a month coming in. You're financially independent. You can have FU money. You can make more moves. The big problem is most people are so pressed that they can't let that job go. I started noticing about 3 years ago that people in Mercedes, these nice Infinities, BMWs, they were driving for Uber Eats, and Amazon Flex. If you're driving a $60,000 car and you work in Amazon Flex, I don't think it's because you chose to. You know what I'm saying? So, all right. So for those of you who got here late, just rewatch the video. That's all you got to do. All right. So I'm going to cut it short because I don't want this to be too long because we're already at like 40 minutes. And there'll be some more videos tomorrow, but all the links to the courses of Hustlers Kung Fu Life Skills. I'm not adding anything else to that. So everything's there, still there. And so if you bought something, you still have access to it. And I'm selling things to pay the monthly maintenance fee. Once again, once I start adding people from Hustler Undergrad to the tier, which should be by the end of the month, because that's going to be the tier that I'm going to be constantly updating. The tier 1, tier 2 probably be a fixed price, and tier 3 will be constantly updated. Tier 5 constantly, So once again, I will do another video where I'm logged in because there's really nothing there yet. Tomorrow, the 5 checking accounts will be there, and like I said, it's my intention to get that done next week. All right. So with that, I'll see you guys next video. Links are below. And if you want the 5 checking account notification, get on that email list. And I will talk to you guys later. What is your money story? And by that, I mean, how did you come to form your relationship about money, finances, credit, and investing? Now, I have a little insight on that. You had it developed or instilled in you by 2 different means. One, your parents or the lack of parents, and one of an environment. Let's take all of these guys who will be entering the NFL draft come, I think, March or May, whenever it happens. You're going to have guys who come from a very impoverished background who will become instant millionaires. first round and some of the guys in the second round, maybe even the third. I'm not even sure. But the point is, you will have people who are unaccustomed to having money, who will have a lot of money, and they'll have it real quick. Based upon their money story, it's going to either grow or it's going to get smaller. You ever notice how some football players, baseball players, NBA players, they never go broke? And some you can tell from the first paycheck they get and what they do with it. This is part of your money story. If you come into a large sum of money and there is no one in your immediate family or in the circle of people that you trust, you have no idea what to do with it. Let me give you an example of my changing money story. My mother was really bad with money, like atrociously bad. So that was one of the reasons that I wanted to make more money and have more things, because we didn't have any money. I did the opposite of what she did, thinking that was good enough, but it really was only part of the equation. So my money story was created in an environment of lack, going back to starting companies so I can get stuff wholesale because we didn't have the money to buy them full retail price, which actually worked out very well for me. Depending upon your family structure, and if you have the ability to have people who have money, who have means, to be close to them at an early age, you're not going to have any clue to who to trust. I mean, I want you to really think about it. You're 19, you're 20, you're 21 years old. You just signed this check, and within a few days, there's millions of dollars in your bank account. And for the last 2 to 4 years, you've been living not an impoverished lifestyle if you're at one of the top tier programs, but not one in roaring abundance. What are you going to do? I remember my first big check. I went out and I bought a brand new BMW. I paid cash for it. Yet I couldn't afford that car. I didn't understand what you can and what you can't afford. I emptied out my bank account. The car was $55,000. I had $56,000 in the bank. Wrote a check, drove off. I had spent all of the money that I had in the world. I look back at that time and I was like, what were you thinking? There's no way I can do it. I can tell you, I could have $350,000 cash money in the bank and I still would not do what I did back then. I would need to have way more to feel comfortable, because as I changed my money story, I got accustomed to having money. See, I was still in that lack environment and I still had a lot of repressed and pent up wants. So when I finally got some money to get what I want, that's what I went out and did. But I didn't have enough money to pay my taxes, which created a problem. And I had to make more money, and I ended up the year driving a very nice car, living in a rented place with ramen noodles and spaghetti in my refrigerator. I had a nice car, I had an okay place to live, but I had no cash money. Now, from outside appearances, I looked like I was on top of the world, but I wasn't. When you are developing your money story, this is something that's going to happen to you during the formative years of 3 to 10. This is when it's going to be developed. This is an inheritance from your parents. It's not an active, or it could be active. You could have a father who's like, look, you need to save your money. That's an active money story, but often with parents who are very economical, very thrifty, really good at saving money, they develop a beggar's mentality. They'll have money, but they're afraid to spend it, they're afraid to use it, and they will still have these cheap pathologies into old age. When I was living in a boarding house, a house around the corner caught fire. The guy owned the house, and when the fire people were there, they noticed something very strange. There was $650,000 cash money all up in the attic. Fortunately, they put out the fire before that money burnt up. And the story became out really big because the guy was in a home and they talked to his girlfriend. He had been in a relationship with this woman for 15 years. They never went out to eat. She remembered, it's like, I remember he would come over to my place for a free meal. And she's like, it leaves me feeling some kind of way to know he had that kind of money and we never did anything. It wasn't like I wanted the top choice of this or that, but it would have been nice to go out. That is pathologically cheap. And he died, and the money went to the state. Border or boundary of being thrifty, being practical, and living your best life. There is some wiggle room in here. Typically, I take 10% of my income and I blow it any way that I want to, and I don't think twice about it. Because you could become pathologically cheap. And at one point, I was pathologically cheap. If it didn't come out of a storage unit, I didn't have any need for it. And remember my earlier videos about the Clampetts and how people would dress funny? These guys had thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in their pockets, and they still look like a Barney Rubble, Mayberry reject. Part of living a wonderful, fulfilling life is not to be so good with money and the rest of your life is just trash. And this is what I've seen with many of these people. And there was one guy, we used to call him Snowball. He had a lot of money, he had property, and then his fortunes changed. He had to start selling stuff. Because he was pathologically cheap, he did not put money where he needed to be. Being pathologically cheap, due to the money story that you get from your parents, could also set you up to be broke, because you will not spend money where it needs to be spent. And this isn't about going out and buying a new car or getting the latest and greatest. This is something else that I've seen, especially with the Amazon FBA crowd. Every time I put up some on my Facebook page or a question, I can tell who's pathologically cheap, and I can see it. Now, here's the thing with being pathologically cheap. You're only going to go so far in life, because you will not spend money that you could spend in the proper places. Now, what is your money story? What have you done or been exposed to create your money story? You may have a pathologically cheap money story. You may have a big spender money story. You may have a practical money management story. What is your money management story? Did you get it from your parents? Did you get it from your environment? One of the things that really, really helped me, I lived in Adamsville, Alabama, and literally walking distance from the house, there was this place called Simmons Machinery. They were developers. At the time, it was just this big fancy building with Simmons Machinery on it and these earth movers, these big dump trucks. He had 2 helicopters. Then across the street from him was this place called Camel's Pharmacy. I used to hang out in that pharmacy because the guy who owned it would take these big game trips. He would go up into the woods and mountains, shoot some animal, and then have it stuffed. And he did this all of the time. And one of the things that he did as a pharmacist is he bought his store. He didn't rent a store. He bought his store. He had a mortgage on it. He paid it off. And that business, last time I went home, was still in business. So we're talking about 30 years. And I remember when they built it. So I had this over here, this guy who was thrifty in some areas, but he would splurge because, I don't know if you know, it's a lot of money to go on these big game hunting trips. A lot of money. And it's even more money to have the animal situated and dressed and then take the animal to a taxidermist and have him stuff it. That's a lot of money. When we were in the storage auction business, I remember buying this unit and being pissed off. It had 10 deer heads, 10-point buck, a 14-buck, a 16-point buck. I didn't have any clue to what I had. He had stuffed squirrels, all kinds of stuffed animals, right? So me, this is when you could sell this stuff on eBay. I just put the 14-point buck head on eBay for 99 cents, opening bid, and I put, because I knew the shipping was going to be steep. So I put $100 for shipping because I knew we were going to have to build a crate and all this other stuff. But you could ship it by FedEx. I woke up the next morning, that sucker was up to $360. It went for $1,230. A dead deer head, but it had 18 points. And if you know anything about hunting, 10-point bucks, 12 when you start getting to 12, 14, 15, it gets rare. It gets very, very rare. So all of a sudden, this unit, I was pissed that I bought because I was actually running someone up, and I ended up with the unit for $350, and I was pissed because I saw some of the dead animals in there. I was like, man, what is this going to be? Little did I know. And this is how I learned about taxidermy and all this other stuff. What is your money story? Where did it come from? And what I want you to do is to go home, or if you have the time now, take out a sheet of paper and ask yourself, where did your views about money originate? How did you come to think about money the way that you think about money? And if you think about it and you really start to explore your early development stages, you're going to nail it down. Because with my money story, which was rooted in lack, I had to evolve it. I had to write more chapters because it was still very limited. You know, don't get in financial trouble. Great. But how do you make money? How do you invest money? Where do you put money? That part of my money story did not exist, which is why I went out and spent $55,000 on a brand new car and emptied out my bank account like a fool. Don't do that. If I had been smart, what I really should have did, because I had at that point was thinking about an LLC, and then Jim hit me just with stuff. The better option would have been to go and lease that car in my corporate name, and I wouldn't have spent all my money, and I would have had a tax advantage. But this is something I know now. At the time, I had no clue. I was just like, I'm just driving my car. Now, once again, this is very, very important, because in this draft, you're going to have people who are going to become instant millionaires, and they're going to have people who are going to talk to them, tell them where to put their money, tell them how to live, and tell them how to be thrifty. And you're still going to have guys who are going to go broke, because you can sit down, you can explain stuff to them, and they'll nod their head because consciously they hear you. But subconsciously, and that's where that money story is, they're going to operate on that money story, even though practical advice is at their fingertips. They're going to try to save people. They're going to try to hook everybody up, and they don't understand, even though 10, 20, I think not Johnny Manziel, but Mayfield, I think he got like 30 million and 21 guaranteed money, or $21 million signing bonus, which I don't know anything about NFL contracts, but I do know how tax law works. And that's going to be, I mean, literally between his agent and taxes, he lost more than half that money. So I don't really know how they structure these payments, because it would be better off to pay that out over time versus all at once. But once again, I don't know. But your money story is going to operate not just how you handle money, but how you live your life. And how you live your life is going to be whether you're happy, whether you get married, whether you get divorced. Like right now, Jeff Bezos is getting divorced from his wife for 25 years. And all the people are going like, oh, she's going to get half. I don't think so. If you really study Jeff Bezos, he's ruthless. And one of the reasons that he built Amazon for long-term durability is he ignored a lot of the advice in the push of Wall Street, because he knew that stuff was great for short-term profits, but for long-term profitability, it wasn't really that good. So I would not be surprised if he and his soon-to-be ex-wife have some kind of contract or some kind of agreement, because I just don't think she's going to get half of Amazon. I know that there are people who are going crazy at the thought of this, but I don't think it's going to happen. I could be wrong. I'm not in their bed. I don't know what's going on, but just judging upon Jeff Bezos and his money story, because Jeff Bezos' grandfather was the commissioner of the Atomic Energy Board, I believe. Now, that's some heavy duty stuff. And I'm quite sure Granddad taught Jeff a lot of stuff. Even though he didn't grow up with a silver spoon in his mouth, he grew up with access. Because with me, Simmons Machinery, one day I'm walking by and the pilot of the helicopter takes me up over Adamsville. And these things came to me during my formative years, and they're very impactful. And many things that happened to you that formed your money story, you are totally unaware and oblivious to it, yet this is creating the lack of money, the hoarding of money in your life. because how you view money. Some people view money as power. Some people view money as success. Some people view money as the be all, when really money's just a tool. That's all it is. It's a tool, and you're going to get the most bang for the buck with the intellect that is behind the money. So go ahead, recall some memories, throw it off in the comments. What is your money story? And I'll see you guys in the next video. And hold on, I have some other stuff for you that will start right now. Hey, what's going on? Just to show you the development map of what's going on with money, income, and profit.com. As we go through here, I'm going to show you the curriculum. All right. That's published. I know for a fact that's published. Let's go here. There we go. All right, so this is your free stuff. Welcome to the First Up Your Financial Life. It's also on YouTube, the 5 Checking Account Blueprint. All right, and we're getting into the course, New Money Habits that will make you financially independent. There are 3 stages to getting wealthy. Financial independence, the ability to earn more than enough money to take care of yourself without being tied to a set number of hours. And that's generally a side hustle or your own business. And then we're going to get into getting rich, which is 10 to 20 times the average yearly income. Your rich stage 2, and wealthy. Your money makes money and you don't work, you manage. That's stage 3. So we'll get into those. What is money? Debt to income, the real reason you're broke and struggle. There's this felonious statement that it doesn't matter how much you make. If you're only making $25,000 a year in 2019, you really don't have enough to save. You just don't, unless you're living at home with parents or something else. You don't have a car. You don't have enough money to save. You need to be at 50, 55, and this is something else, and we're going to talk about the FIRE movement. This is where a lot of these people are. I remember one girl saying the average income was 70 to 100K, perhaps for her circle, but nationwide, average income is 28 to 32K per single person a year. So there's a lot of confusion with that, but we'll talk about that. Why you can't afford the car you're driving, even 50 to 65K a year. Sweet 16, why and when you need to start saving 50 to 75% of your income. How to buy stuff, why I'm a name brand kid. Short-term money, active or passive income. Long-term money, stores of value, not stock or crypto. Money, more money, why savings is not enough. Replace saving money with the real deal, managing money. Accelerated income, self-employment business owner. And how to invest for more money. Never buy stock unless it pays a dividend. Investment income for the future, not the next 5 years. So this is going to be this course right here. I'll be working on it today, tomorrow, this weekend. Should get it finished by next week, and then we'll move to phase 2. For those of you who are not in Hustler undergrad, and once again, let me make this very plain, you don't have to buy this. Once I get this done and the second tier done, then we move into stage 3, which will include this and the second tier. Then we'll start adding you guys to the course. You know, my assistant will reach out to you, and there's a lot of good stuff that's coming down. We're going to get into the t-shirts. We're getting into a lot of stuff. So just a warm and heartfelt thanks for sticking it out. But we are about to start cooking with gas. So what I'm going to do going forward is just work on one thing at a time and get it done. Because once we get to the stage, the third tier, that's going to be a monthly reoccurring revenue deal. Because you're going to get information every month. And that's why you need to pay. And for those of you who bought Hustler Undergrad, you'll get that even though you have a limited payment term, because once you pay up all your tuition, you're done, and you'll still have access to the course. You'll have access to the new updates, so on and so forth. And there are some people who were talking about access, and they bought Hustlers Kung Fu Life Skills 2015. I'm going to do something. I have no clue to what I'm going to do, but I will make something available. And this is one of the things my assistant will be working on. So there you have it. The link's below to enroll. It is $100. I'll just go ahead and make that one and done. Maybe make it 75. And then for those who want to pay over time, it's 4 monthly payments, $25. If that's hurting your pockets, I can't help you. Oh, wait a minute. Actually, if you watch enough videos and start executing on some of this free stuff, you would actually be able to afford that. How about those apples? Well, anyway, that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Today we're going to talk about why you should buy brand name stuff. And I'm going to give you a methodology on how to buy stuff and why you should buy name brand stuff. But before we get into that, I need to give you a little history because you're not going to get this information from anyone else. I used to be really curious about why people bought certain things. You're at the door and you see a bunch of toys in the storage unit. There are nice toys. You see beautiful kids' furniture. These are people who really cared about their kids and got their kids the best. I would not buy that unit unless I can get it ridiculously cheap. People who invest heavily in their kids don't have anything else. They don't have money anywhere else in their life. They will drive an older car. They will live in the best neighborhood they can manage for their kids, which is what they should do. But from a buying perspective, these were absolutely the worst units to get. Kid stuff is routinely cheap and disposable because children grow, they outgrow clothes, they outgrow toys. Now, what does that have to do about buying brand name? The door goes up and I see nothing but Apple boxes, Apple computers, Apple laptops. I see a nice Herman Miller desk, name brand stuff all over the place. What is your money clock? Today we're going to talk about something that no one ever talks about, your money clock, and how that can impact either adversely or positively on your quest for financial independence. Each one of us only has so many years of high productivity. No one ever talks about this. No one ever brings this up. But today we're going to talk about it and how you can use this principle to increase your wealth. Typically, your average person is going to make their most money between their mid-20s and their mid-40s. And to make money and to enjoy your life and have money set aside for your retirement, because you're never going to retire from a business standpoint. So that's a 20-year window where you're going to make the bulk of your money if you're an average person. If you're a doctor, if you're an attorney, or a highly paid executive or an entrepreneur, this does not apply. But if you're the average person, this greatly applies. What is your money clock? It is the ticking of your financial expiration life. Many of the people who reach their mid-40s to late 50s, once they exit the job market, it's very hard for them to come back in and continue to make the same amount of money they were accustomed to making. Why is this important? Essentially, due to average financial advice, which is mostly rooted toward poor people, you only have 20 to 30 years to really make the money that you need to live on the rest of your life. Most people, your money clock starts ticking at around 25. It starts ticking very loud when you reach your 40s or 50s. At this point, this is when many people exit or are pushed out of traditional jobs. Now, how do you get around that? And how do you start your money clock ticking much sooner? One of the things you need to do is to start your money clock much sooner. I will address people who are already of a certain age a little later. You need to start your money clock at 16 to 18. You don't have to have a full-fledged business, but you do need to have a side hustle that makes $1,000 to $2,000 per month. Mandatory. Now, once you start your money clock ticking at 16, let's say you go through a 10-year period or maybe a 20-year period, you can reach extreme financial independence during this time frame because your energy level is very high. You have a lot of energy, you look good, you can stay up all night and get up and be very productive. But the older you become, if you don't exercise, that dissipates. I'm 52 years old and I can still work a 12, 16-hour day, which many people are trying to get away from. I don't get away from it because I know what the future holds. We're going to have remarkable medical breakthroughs. We're going to have this stuff and they're going to cost some money. So that's one of the reasons I still am in a active income mode versus just chilling. There's a lot of people who want to reach, let's call it chillation, destination chillation, where they have enough money to do what they want to do. There's a problem with that though. There are many people who have no concept of what to do with themselves. People don't have hobbies, and I know you're going like, hey, you're being elitist. They'll figure it out. Will they? You should have that figured out. You should be saving money. You should be working out. You should be doing a lot of stuff. So if people were going to figure certain things out, I think they would have figured them out a long time ago. If you are in a position, like say during this government shutdown, and you miss 2 paychecks and you're in the world of hurt, you haven't figured some stuff out. And this isn't me being unkind to the people who are caught up and being literally held hostage. It's me stating facts. The average American doesn't have $1,000 cash money they can get their hands on in case of emergency. 50, 60% of the people in this country are in that position. That's why there are these pawn shops, title pawn, rent to own. That's why this stuff exists, because people don't have money. Now, what does this have to do with your money clock? No one ever told you that you only had a certain amount of years of high productivity. You could be productive in your 50s, you could be productive in your 60s, you could be productive in your 70s. Look at Nancy Pelosi. She's running circles around Donald Trump. She's older than he is. She's older than he is. It's not an age thing, it is a perspective thing, because most people are working to stop working. They're not working to build something. They're not working to create a life of intent and design. They're working to potentially set aside a bunch of money so they can do what they really want to do. I hypothesize that maybe you should be doing what you really want to do right now and blend that into your work life so you can make some money and be happy at the same time. Just a thought. Now, what if you are one of those people who are already 40, who are already 50, who are already 60? You're going to have to do some extreme stuff. There is no easy answers. There's no easy solutions. So if that's what you're looking for, I don't have any. First of all, you're going to have to get Spartan. You're going to have to become one of these pathologically cheap people so you can start stacking some money. Once your money clock starts ticking, it's going to tick at a very high and productive rate from, let's say, 16 to 45, 16 to 50. After that, the drop off in productivity, the drop off in energy is real. And this is one of the things that's not really discussed with financial planning or getting wealthy, because many people feel that they're going to do it much quicker than they really can. Herein lies the reason that the financial industry exists, because the advice they give you doesn't take into account this money clock. They just say, well, you know, your primary working years, but they really don't take into account the energy level. As someone who started many, many different companies, it takes a very high level of energy to get it started. And naturally, between the ages of 16 and maybe 35, you have a pretty high natural energy level, unless you're health-wise compromised. But if you're healthy, you have loads of energy, but most of your time is predicated or divested into having fun, hanging out with your friends, building relationships. And I think that the way that our school system is, the way socially that we're set up, that we're giving kids the wrong advice. You should figure out some stuff. And I will give you 16 to 21. Figure out some stuff. But even at 16 to 21, you still need to be making money doing something. We have the internet, the greatest equalizer in history. Virtually everyone can make money online. Now let's talk about making money online. There's selling something on Craigslist, Amazon. You made money online. If you put up a pair of shoes on eBay and you sold them and you got like 120 bucks, you've made money online. Everyone can make money online. How many people are making a living online? How many people are making enough money to pay all their bills and fund their retirement accounts and do all this stuff? That's what I'm talking about, because the sooner that you start acquiring these skills, the sooner that you will reach the position that you want to reach in. Because I remember there was this kid. He had cancer. This was when I was working in a Scottish Rite MOB. And his father was a salesman of cardboard boxes or something. I used to actually visit them and keep up with them. I haven't kept up with them in a long time. But essentially, the father started his own business. He got fired doing what he was doing in his job. And he made 3 times as much money. His wife worked because the insurance for their child who had cancer was on her insurance plan. So he was the primary caregiver. He would bring him for his appointments and so on and so forth. But because he accelerated his money clock, he was able to do that. Your main problem is how fast you make income. There's this thing, the FIRE movement. You can do this on any income. I vigorously disagree. You're making 25, 30K. Unless you live in Kansas, that ain't happening, Playboy. But with the example of Bart, he drastically accelerated his income with the leverage of a business. That's where the juice is. Because I want you to think, we all have a set number of years where we can be highly productive. And there will be some unicorns, some people like Tony, the chick that sings the Mickey song. She's 75 and her energy level is higher than a lot of 16-year-olds. And I think that will become more normal as people take care of themselves. But imagine during your productive years, if you can accelerate your income. So instead of you working 20, 35 years, you work 20, 35 years and make 10, 20, 30, 40 times the money during your frame, because that's the key, accelerating your income. And I'm going to do a special video on why banks are not the worst place in the world for you to put your money. Because I've seen a lot of videos about that, and it's like, no, that's not the truth. But I'll get into that in that video. If you want to accelerate your money clock, now that you know you have one, because, going back to my 45, 50, 60-year-olds, here's the template. You're going to have to live on 50 or 25% of your income and bank and invest the rest. If you're 40, late 40s, 50s, or 60s, that's what you're going to have to do. Now, as we move forward, we'll talk about some other stuff. The goal isn't to retire. The goal is to get to a place where you can control your time and make more than enough money to live. One of the things I have a problem with the FIRE income, and someone actually commented in there, let's not deal with assumptions or assuming everything goes right. In these videos, I'm giving you principles of things I have done or currently doing. I'm not assuming, and I'm not speaking in conjecture, because the person went on and is like, well, that's something, he made these points, but he ain't even following these points. That's disingenuous, my dude. Don't do that. I do mean to get back to that comment, because I'm going to blow it up. Because one of the things, and I want you to really understand me, if all of this financial advice is so good, why are most Americans a few paychecks away from disaster? Plenty of information. A lot of it's free because this information is designed to keep people poor. It is. You've never heard anyone talk about accelerated income. You've talked about the people, oh God, it's super risky starting a business. Oh God, it's super risky having a job. There is, to me, starting a business, going back to Bart and with the son with cancer, with knowledge in the industry that you know well, is no riskier than changing jobs. Now, it is a risk for you to start a business doing something you have no clue to what's involved. Yeah, that's extremely risky. That's why they will not hire you at a job unless you have experience, because it's extremely risky. You want a traditional money clock, or do you want an accelerated money clock? Because like I said, now that you know the clock is ticking, what are you going to do? For those of you who need more help with accelerating your money clock, first comment below is a link to enroll in my basic financial course, which I'm currently building out. Every day or every other day, there's new content until that is done. Then we'll move to the second tier. Now here's the news. If you buy into the first tier and you want the second tier, whatever you paid for the first tier, you don't have to pay again. We'll send you a coupon so you will not pay that money again, because they will contain the same information. There'll be the first tier, which will be basic financial education. The second tier, invest in yourself. And the third tier would be monthly program. It's like a subscription model. So there's a lot of ways that you can get in there. And if you buy tier 1, you buy tier 2, then we will take that off of the monthly subscription. So there ain't no way for you to lose. And if you want to start learning how to accelerate your income, you want to learn how to start buying brand name stuff and living well, saving money and making money, do yourself a favor, go below, click that link and get in. With that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Let's talk about money. One of the reasons that I created the basic financial education course was that most of us never got a solid financial education. And I'm not talking about balancing your checkbook and creating a budget. And in that case, many of us didn't get that. Well, I'm speaking about the American culture of debt. It's something that's relatively new in the State of the Union. It is a problem because, as far as I can pin it back, it really started in the 60s. There were mortgages, but they were 10 and 15-year mortgages. And people usually had a very hefty down payment to get into a house. We now have people who are indoctrinated into being into lifelong debt. It's not even a thought. It's like, well, I'll go out and get a car that's equal or greater than my yearly income. You know, it used to be that the most car they would finance for you was half of your income, and that was really pushing it. Whatever your income was, they would finance a car up to that limit. And then we came up with these 60-month loans, 72-month loans, and you have this situation where your car is depreciating, but you still owe this amount of money on something that's no longer worth what you paid for it when you drove it off the lot. Part of the things that are happening with our culture are systematic. It's not a he or she or poor people or rich people thing. It's a systematic culture, credit card dependencies, getting a loan. For a long time, and this is what brought on the housing crisis, was you would buy a house, barely get into it, leverage that into a home equity loan and go out and buy a car. Many people use their houses as ATM, not just as places to live, nor to store wealth and build long-term value for generational wealth. That was like a foregone conclusion. People are drunk on debt. In this video, we want to address why and how to solve the problem. Just like you, I was in the military. I got my first credit card. I remember it was a First Union Bank Visa and a MasterCard from Citibank. Man, they gave me $1,500 limit on both of them. I had $3,000 worth of credit. And I promptly went to Macy's and Rich's, and I bought clothes, sweaters, shoes. And this was after I bought my car, because once I bought my car and paid on it for, I think, 8 months, I started getting credit cards. All of a sudden, I didn't have to wait until payday. I didn't have to wait until it was the right time. I didn't have to save up money. I was just able to slap that card down and pow, I had it instantly. Do you know that is what's called a kick? It's called a mental kick. Every time you buy something, you get a mental rush. You get a little drop of dopamine. That's why you hear shopping therapy. It's a real thing. Well, people will go out and shop, they spend money, and they get these dopamine kicks, and they feel much better. Shopping therapy is real, and it is a symptom of the financial problem that we have as Americans. To a degree, it happens in Europe and Italy, but they're not as bad as we are. Kick is a part of the reason that many people are drunk on debt. And they don't even understand it. They just know when I buy something, I feel good. I was like, hey, this is cool. I'm going to keep doing it. Then you reach that point where you have no more credit. This is the weird things about addictions. And credit can be an addiction. And for many people, it is an addiction. They're very hard to kick. What happens is you literally rewire your mind. Because when Mike posted on his page where someone was saying, I'd rather have an 850 credit score versus $600,000 cash, I was like, is the world gone mad? Has the world gone crazy? And then I started to really think about this, how we transformed from a very financially conservative society where people just did not buy things that they couldn't afford, or the credit system was in place. Like if you went to the meat store, and say the meat or the butcher would say, okay, I'll give you $50 a week. You can get your meat now, but you got to pay me at the end of the week. So the credit systems that were in place didn't allow people to get too deep. Because if you didn't pay the butcher that $50, he was like, he wouldn't give you no more meat. And then $50 was something you usually could pay off fairly quickly and not exhaust yourself. America allowed people to get into a position where their credit score and the amount of their credit limit was a status symbol. This is why I have very high credit limits, but I don't put them out there because I would never, ever charge my credit cards up to their limits. I mentally can't do it because I've kicked the habit, and kicking the habit is very hard. This is why the first principle that I give you with money, income, and profit is make more money. That's how you're going to get the things you want and stay out of debt. In that point where I was an E4 in the military here at Fort McPherson, I had maxed out my credit cards. I had a car I wasn't driving. All of a sudden, I noticed I didn't have any money at the end of the month between paying off those 2 credit cards and paying the car note and paying the insurance. And I had absolutely no money. Everybody except George Fook was living that way. We always just sit out there by the parade field and just talk about it. It's like, hey, before I had this car, I had money. We knew what the problem was at the time. We just did not have the perspective or the understanding to understand the problem. So how does one kick this habit? You got to get real with yourself. First of all, one of the reasons I'm giving you is a basic understanding of how this came out to be. It became an American phenomenon. For you to kick this habit, you got to become somewhat exceptional. You've got to become part of that 0.5%, which is money's a tool. Once again, like I said, cut up your credit cards, don't close your accounts, pay them off, and start treating your credit card like a debit card. Now, this is why I feel that American Express products are probably the best that you could have. It's just you're restricted by your income, because if you have an American Express Green, you can only spend like maybe $1,000, $2,000 a month, and that's it. So you don't get into this trouble. So that's the first stage, recognizing that you're addicted. I know there are many people watching this video like, Glendon, I'm not addicted, I'm not addicted. What I want you to do, if you're not scared, is I want you to add up all of your credit payments, including your mortgage, including your cars, everything, Netflix, whatever you pay with a credit card, then compare and contrast that with your salary. And if that takes up most of your salary, you're beyond addicted. You have the full-fledged disease. Someone asked me in the last live stream, how much of your income should you devote to housing? I said 10%. Now, conventional American financial crisis management would say 30%, 40%, or 50% of your income should go for housing. I would vigorously disagree with that. Your housing needs should take up 10% of your income, because as long as you're still on this 30, 40, 50% model, you're going to be perpetually broke. There's a lot of financial lifestyle advice on YouTube where they'll take a person's salary. Hey, in New York, how do they spend your money? And it's really interesting how many New Yorkers who have a high income have roommates or share some place to live, because they know that it would take such a huge chunk of their salary just to live by themselves that it's crazy. Now that you know that you're addicted, and now you've done your budget, you've added up all of your bills, and you compare it against your salary, first thing you need to do is create a solid budget. If you're in financial trouble, you can't afford Netflix, you can't afford cable, you can't afford your cell phone. Get rid of everything that you have that you can get rid of. Some of these contracts got you locked in. I'm going to say something. You might need to trade that iPhone in for a flip phone or one of their cheaper models. I know you won't have all the gadgets, but once again, when I wrote my first book and I came from a situation of high income to no income and living on savings, one of the first things I did was I had a Verizon account, which was month to month because I let the contract expire. I canceled my Verizon account because I didn't need the extra phones. I didn't need the air card. And I went to Metro PCS and I flashed my Razor phone to Metro because I knew I didn't need that. It was automatic. It was a fast decision. You have to start making decisions like that based upon your current income, not your potential income, not what you hope to make, but the cash money that you have coming in. Once you have this budget, once you've gotten rid of everything, you need to sit down and figure out what you can do to make extra money. Now, let's talk about what you can do to make extra money. I get a lot of questions. Hey, Glendon, what should I do? What's the hot thing? One of my big problems with Amazon Buy Merch and all of these, what I call trend businesses, is they're trend businesses. As long as this trend is popping, it's hot, you can make money. But once it peters out, you're not making any money. You know how many people have built their businesses based upon trends and are surprised when the trend ends? Once again, like I said, my book, Storage Auction thing, I consider that a trend. Even though there's a lot of people who are still doing storage auctions, I just knew that this was not going to go on forever and ever and ever. I was sitting there like, I'm going to get while the getting is good. So never predicate your main hustle on a trend. You can use a trend to make some extra money, but don't get into debt on a trend. Get your money and start saving money and putting money aside so when that trend ends, you can get in on something else. Typically, what many people do with their side hustle is convert that into additional income to further their addiction to credit. Well, now I can now get this $7,000 a month apartment because now I make extra money. No, that's not what you do. And this advice is for people who are financially underwater. If you're good, you got 10, 20, 30, 40, 100K, 200, 300K in the bank. I'm not talking to you. I'm just talking to 75 to 80% of the country who don't even have $500 in the bank. If you are a parent and you don't have $500 to $2,000 in a savings account, you are beyond negligent. If you got kids and you have no reserves, you are living a ticking time bomb. Something's gonna happen. That kid's gonna get sick. You're gonna have to miss time from work. You need to establish, let's talk about how much money should you save, because there's a lot of things. Most of America doesn't have $500 to $2,000 in the bank. I talked about this before, I'm gonna talk about it again. You need $10,000 to $20,000 in a savings account, not in the 401k, not on a credit card. You need 10 to 20K cash money in the bank. Now, people are like, well, that's too much. We're about to go through something, and look at all of these government workers who are essentially working and not getting paid. Look at what's happening. They've missed one paycheck. This Friday, if this thing continues on, they're going to miss 2 paychecks. This is something that happens. Like for many of you, you have a job, you know this. You're responsible for paying part of your health insurance, right? At some point, that's going to become an issue if this thing keeps going on, where there are people in the 800,000 federal employees who no longer have a job. Multiply that by people who have families. So we're not talking about 800,000 people. We're talking about possibly 2 to 3 million people that are not getting a check. There are people who are sick. There are people who have cancer. There are people who cannot make their co-pays. The longer this goes on, someone can end up dying. And I'm not trying to preach doom and gloom. I'm just giving you the facts because, once again, the people, let's talk about this. There's the folks who are like, well, they only missed 1 check. I am shocked at it ain't even insensitivity. It is some people are so partisan that they don't even understand that if they started missing checks, that their life would be adversely part. It was like, hey, look, they're not really missing any check. It's only a week. Only a week? Most of America is 2 to 3 checks from financial ruin. They've missed 1. We're coming up on 2. If we get the 3 missed paychecks, you're going to have people filing bankruptcy. I am not joking. And we should look at this canary in the mine because we're in a recession. Retail is in a depression. And as this thing starts to filter on, I remember when I had my store, this guy who owned a pest control company, he came in to buy these bunk beds and mattresses because the mattresses were pissy. $75 for his daughters. And he said, oh, I'll just get a mattress cover for that because this is all I can afford. I had to lay off 12 people. This is coming back. So you got to solve your problem of being drunk on credit. Now, I've said this and I've talked about it in many videos, but a lot of people haven't heard me. They didn't hear me. I treat my credit card as a debit card. I've been doing this for years. You need to start adapting these money habits as soon as possible. Because let's say you have a job, but you have no debt. That's a whole different ball game than you have no job, you have no money, you got a mortgage, you got a car payment, you got cell phone bills, you got insurance bills, you got all of these bills, enough to keep people up at night. That's enough to put people in depression. America is drunk on credit. America has a systematic way of looking at money that is financially unhealthy. It just is. And if you keep living like this, it's going to catch up with you. We have 70-year-old people filing bankruptcy because they don't have enough money to live on. These are people who houses are paid for. These are people who put money away. I'm going to do a special video on that, how 401k for most people isn't even close to enough. Most people are not saving 10, 15%. And here's some other stuff. I crunched some numbers. 10 to 15% of your salary, and let's say you get a generous match, so you're like saving 20% of your salary. You know where that puts you? In retirement in your late 50s or early 60s at 20%. As I was ranting and raving yesterday about this guy and his 2.5 million, I put $50,000 and I actually did the calculations with a 12% return for 10 years was a little bit over $1 million with a principal balance of $600K. So we doubled our money in 10 years investing $50K. Now, if this was to go on for 2 years, then you get to the point where at 12%, which is not a consistent, it's going to average out at 8%, because I hear people who say 10%, 12%. I did the numbers. Most folks are not getting 10% on their money. Most people are not getting 12% on their money. The average is 6 to 8%. So doubling what people normally get, you still don't come up with 2.5 million. What is happening is, because people are drunk on credit, people are drunk on this financial system, that they have no solid perspective of money. As a business owner or someone who has a side hustle or a side business, call it whatever you want to, You have to look at those numbers, because if you're not looking at those numbers, you're not paying attention to those numbers, you're either in business or you're out of business. So you have a greater understanding of what the numbers should be or what they are. Whereas the average person, as long as I can make these payments, I'm good. Not really. Not really at all. You got to come out of this. So I've given you 3 steps. Number 1, accept the fact that you are a credit addict. Number 2, do a solid budget. Number 3, make more money. Do not make more money before you do the budget, because it will be absorbed in your lifestyle. And then 4, work really, really hard to be debt free as possible or close to debt free. Because once again, if you suffer some kind of crisis and you don't have debts, it's still going to be bad. But debt and additional fees and charges and stuff, that can bury you. I had someone write me, because they went ahead and they went to moneyincomeprofit.com, and they didn't even sign up for anything, because the 5 checking account blueprint is free. You just go there, you look, and you can go through it. And they did this, and this woman is 45 years old, and she said, God, I wish someone had taught me this sooner. And literally a few weeks, she's actually able to save money where she wasn't saving money before, because no one's telling you this stuff. Only reason I know this stuff is I've been extremely poor. I know what it is like to want. I know what it's like to go to bed hungry. And I got out of that because it wasn't really the money I was making. It was how I was treating the money that I was making once I got to a certain point. Because now I look back and I was like, oh man, I could have did this, I could have did this, but I didn't have the knowledge to know how to do it. But now I do have the knowledge, and I'm imparting this knowledge to you, because you're going to have to manage the money that you have coming in, and you're going to have to make more money. Once again, it's frame. Everyone's trying to shove what their desires and they wants in this small frame without really changing who they are. You're going to have to change yourself financially. You just will. And you need to be a business owner or be self-employed in some capacity. This is mandatory. It ain't an option anymore. Jobs, mark my words, after this recession, many of the jobs that will be lost are not coming back. How do I know? Last recession, a lot of jobs disappeared, right? What came back? Not full-time jobs, part-time jobs. Uber, Amazon Flex. Where are all these full-time, high-paying jobs? They didn't come back. What happened was that the super technical jobs that you need to have some serious skills that pay 90 to 200K a year, most folks can't get those jobs because they don't have the skill sets. And it ain't really that many. They'll say that, hey, we have a screaming need for these $150,000 a year programmers, but if people went to school and within 3 years they had enough, guess what? That $150K a year programmer, the price will drop to 90. That's how it works, supply and demand. So you've got to figure out what you can do where you are. Because if you've never made money online on your own abilities, it's going to be very hard. You can use a platform such as Amazon or eBay or something like that, but making money from your own initiative, where you run the traffic, where you run the marketing, where you create the content or the product, that's a different ball game. And that's what you should be working towards, because those kind of businesses are hard to replicate by the masses. Yeah, some smart cookie can come along and duplicate your business, but it's going to be hard, and you're going to have to spend some money. So just saying that. And speaking of spending money, to get your basic financial education, it's $75 one-time payment. And when I release the next session, you'll get a $75 discount on that, and we can go ahead and make money and grow together. Because right now, watch what happens to these 800,000 people who are working with no pay. TSA and JFK is clowning. They're playing No Sleep to Brooklyn, Sicko, on the PA systems. Now, when I was in the military, they would not let you take too much of your vacation. There was a certain amount you could take unless it was terminal leave, which means you were getting out and it didn't matter. If you were on leave too long, you would lose your military bearing. TSA has lost their military bearing. And what's going to happen in JFK is going to spread to other airports, because this is kind of scary, but what if someone organized where it's like everybody just doesn't come to work? This country would ground to a halt. Nobody, I'm serious. You think I'm kidding, because because they got together, this, look, I'm going to play No Sleep to Brooklyn on the PA system. That was a group conversation. That wasn't one person like, hey, I'm just going to play this. Anarchy spreads. And sooner or later, the longer this goes on, they're going to force Donald's hand, because if everyone goes on strike at the same time, there ain't enough room to arrest everybody. They don't have the resources to arrest everybody. And believe me, people are talking about this, because people are hurting right now, and you got a lot of political posturing on the behalf of Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell, because Mitch McConnell, he can go around Donald Trump and open up the government, but he's afraid of that base, so he ain't gonna do it. Hopefully this thing will be worked out, but I don't think so, because remember my opposition of Donald Trump being president before he even won the nomination? And remember what I said on this channel? I kept bringing up two things, and people was just like, no one cares. Multiple divorces, multiple bankruptcies. What do these things indicate? Poor personal character and a lack of responsibility. What are we seeing right now? I don't care. I'm gonna get rid of this wife and get me another one. I don't care. I'm gonna file bankruptcy and get out this jam and leave other people hanging. What's happening right now? Government shut down. These people don't get money. It's not going to impact him. It's not going to impact anyone he loves and cares about. It's just going to impact a bunch of people who are just like those ex-wives and those former business partners that he divorced and bankrupt on. Think about it. Like I said, many of the reasons that I felt that he would be a poor president, lack of experience is not one of them, and poor character, you're seeing it in living color right now. So with that, I'll see you guys later. Go below, enroll in your basic financial education, $75 one-time payment. You get that off of the next thing that drops, and there we are. See you guys in the next video.
We did just what the home.
I was the black cat. I used to have bad luck. Now every girl wanna really matter that much. A college dropout, and if it don't add up, a brother stayed on the move. Glad I packed up, slipping, falling on some X shit, and I rhyme excess. Line off, where the fuck the exit? Not that I want to, guess I must accept it. And my flow is on lockdown, arrested. Body bag beats, mark them off on the checklist. All I need to get by, man, no method. Too calm, I orchestrate such a fuse bomb. Baghdad bars, he spit but be too calm.
Let's talk about money in retirement. I was retired, and I'm going to tell you about it. One of the reasons that you don't hear these type of stories is time that most people retire, they're usually old. There's an expectation that they should be retired, that they should have plenty of free time. I was retired at a relatively young age. I believe it was 43. And let me explain to you how it happened. I wrote my first book, Making Money A to Z with Self-Storage Unit Auctions. The first year I had really good sales of 62,000. The second year I had great sales of 90-something thousand. The third year I did over $1 million. When this happened, I didn't have any debt. I didn't have a car payment. I was living on, quote, a self-imposed fixed income. And I just upped it up a little bit and I continued on. Monthly mortgage was paid. Like I said, I just had really little bills. When your house is paid for, or you have a low housing payment, or your car is paid for, it doesn't take a lot of money to live, and to live well. So this is where I started to experiment. This is where I had all of this free time to do these things, try these experiments, play this. I traveled a little bit, but travel at that time was not really my thing. Today, we're hearing this thing called FIRE, Financial Independence, Retire Early. I have a problem with the FIRE movement, and I'm going to explain it to you in a methodology that I think will make sense. Going back to my example of where I was truly and legitimately retired, I had to do nothing, and money came in. A lot of money came in. The FIRE movement is very debatable because you retire at 35. You have your portfolio, you're withdrawing 4%. What are you going to do if someone gets cancer? Now, I bring this up not to be all dark and lugubrious. There's a guy, and I talked about him before. He's 84 years old. He's driving the truck to pay for his wife's medical bills. He retired, paid off his house, had money put away, had a pension, one illness, totally rearranged their financial life. What I want to submit to you is let go of this fantasy of saving up enough money where you can do what you want. Because as a person who was legitimately retired, there's a few things that are going to happen. Now, I got sick and I almost died. Fortunately, my issues were very simple. I did not have massive medical bills or nothing like that. It was something that I could pay for really quickly. I couldn't work for 2 months. And this was during the time that I had financial independence. And I should explain this. When I wrote my first book, I had, due to hard work and savings, had enough money in the bank to easily live 2 years. And I gave myself permission to chase a dream from actually working for that dream. I've always been in a position that if something happened, that generally I'd be fine. So during this time, I couldn't work. That was my main focus, not where I'm going to live, not if I have money for medicine. My main focus was getting better. From working in the hospital, I have seen what one illness, not even cancer, just one will do to a family's financial plan. So if you go ahead and you, quote, retire early on a fixed income and something happens, oh, wait a minute. Because you have assets, you can't get Social Security, you can't get Medicaid, because you would have to get rid of all that to get the help that you may need eventually or exhaust that. Just another point of contention. There is a problem with people, quote, retiring early. The chances of you outliving your money are very great. We are experiencing many retirees who are in their 70s, their 80s, and their 90s, and they're starting to outlive their money. So if you retire at 25, 35, and once again, that's dubious because you can't stop working. You can't. And this is one of the bad things about passive income. I had true passive income that regardless of what I did or didn't do, the money came in. Passive income will at some point be disturbed. Currently, we're in the end of a record bull market. You know when this happened before? Shortly before the book The Millionaire Next Door came out. It was at the end of a record bull market. Put your money in stocks, do this, live cheap. Same thing all over again. What happened? A lot of people were financially executed. Their portfolios dropped 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70%, depending upon how it was arranged. My argument is you need active income the rest of your life. Going back to the medical things. If you're a Facebook friend of mine, I have an article about genetic coding. They're actually able to go in and design babies now. Let's say you're 55, you retired at 25. So, that's 30 years. Then they come out with this new technology. Let's say you have a heart problem. And this new technology is $350K to get you a new heart, where they take your cells and grow you a new heart and insert it. And that means your body doesn't reject your own tissue. You think that stuff's going to be cheap? There are many people who are living on a fixed income, and a greater percentage of their income goes towards their medication than their rent or their mortgage, if they have one. The older you become, your priorities of where your money shifts is very interesting. You may not have a new car, you may not have a mortgage, but you will have medical expenses. Someone told me recently that more than 52% of Americans were on some type of prescription medication. I didn't believe it. I'm not on anything. I'm not on blood pressure medicine. I'm on nothing. And I was just thinking, you gotta be kidding me, and looked it up and it was true. What's gonna happen from a medical standpoint is going to be very fascinating. It's going to be groundbreaking. It's going to be earth-shattering, and you're not going to be able to afford it if you stop working. My opinion, once again, you need active income, and you need to work for as long as you can. Now, in my course, where we talk about financial independence, your first priority is to get where many of the fire people are, to a point where they get to control their time. They have money coming in. They don't have to work a set schedule, but they still have to work. That's the first step. The second step is to get to where you're making 10 to 20 times more money than the average income, because at that point you're classified as rich. Then this sets the stage for you to become wealthy. One of the greatest things I see is people don't want to be responsible for anything. But mark my words, it is very hard for you to become financially independent, rich, or wealthy without responsibilities, unless you're the offspring or the wife or husband of someone who's shouldering those responsibilities. This application of, hey, I just want to do me. I just want to have all this free time to do whatever I want to do. It's going to bite a lot of people in the ass. I believe, and this is a person who lives off of 10% of their income, that you should work as long as you can. Doesn't have to be a job, but it needs to be something that you like to do that makes money. And this whole notion of, oh yeah, let's go back to my retirement. You know, one of the weirdest things that I found out, even though I was retired and I had all of this freedom and I could do what I want, most of the people that I knew couldn't. They were still on that Friday, Saturday, Sunday schedule. Most of the events were Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You will find yourself in a situation where you have great personal freedom. And if you have a mate, that's cool. But you will find out that most folks can't do it. Even folks who make a lot of money because they have responsibility, they just can't take off when they want to. Just kind of giving you an inside look on this thing, because retiring with nothing to do except just wake up and do something is one of the fastest ways to end your life. In this neighborhood I live, and I've been here about 11 years, one of the things that I have seen over and over and over again is people that have retired pick up a second job, an odd job, teach. They do something because they know if they sat at home just hanging out that they would die. You ever notice how when a long couple that's been married a really long time, the first one dies, within months or a year, the second one goes. They don't have any reason to live. They don't have anyone that they could be around. They don't have, it's crazy how often that happens. It's amazing. What we're going to talk about is active income. We're not going to talk about, quote, playing with fire, because where most of them end up, which is financial independence, is the ability to have money coming in without working a regular job or set hours. That to me is just stage one. Stage two is getting rich, and stage three is becoming wealthy. And some of them are kind of doing that, but I just think that it is crazy to come out of the job force, have this stack of money that's predicated on a entity, the stock market, which is heavily emotionally manipulated. Because let's say you do everything right. Let's say you hit all your numbers. Then a recession happens and your portfolio loses 30, 40%. But you've been out of the workforce for 4 or 5 years. You know, and this is something else too. Once you come out the workforce, X amount of years, it's very hard to get back in. I would rather have you save money, manage money, because like I said, the FIRE movement has money management. They got that down pat. Spending, they got that down pat, but they don't go far enough. And I'm just telling you, as a person who has experienced legitimate retirement, ain't all cracked up to what you may think it is, because you're in a position where you don't know what it looks like. You don't know what it tastes like. It's just like, wow, this thing over here is just amazing. I can't wait to get there. Trust me, it's not going to be what you think it is. And I have been living this lifestyle. I have older videos where I talked about, I save 50% of my income. And it's, I think, dubious because the way that they present it, I've been living like that for many years. But I don't consider myself retired. The only time that I was truly retired was when my book was bumping and I was just chilling at home. Two years, and well, I actually diverted my time and attention to other things. You're going to live a long time. I hope you live a long time. You're going to look good. I hope you look good. And you're going to need some money. You're going to need some money. This whole notion of what I call pathologically cheap, I just don't think it's the way to go. Personal opinion. Because if I'm sitting on a portfolio of $3 to $10 million, There's no way that I'm staying in a $60 per night hotel room. There's no way that I am taking some cheap travel. What I bring to you is have the proper money management systems in place. Do that. But also live. One of the things that we're going to discuss in my new school is what I call the 50% solution or 10% solution. Like I said, I live on 10% of my income, but it's a very high income. So my 10% will still be balling to most people. I want you to live like that. I don't want you to live like a beggar. I don't want you to live all cheap. I want you dressing out of Goodwill. I want you to have the choice to live your life the way you want to. And once again, I have seen what happens to pathologically cheap people. It becomes a habit, and the habit becomes a lifestyle. You can't even enjoy the money because you're so cheap. Just some thoughts. So for those of you who want to learn how to make more money, because that's one of the core tenets, go below, get enrolled into the basic financial education program. It's $75 right now, one-time payment, or $100, 4 payments for $25. When I do the next thing, which will be another thing, whatever I charge for that, I will take off whatever you paid for the first course. So, because it's going to contain the same information. Plus, I'm going to add, just to be clear, I'm going to do tier 1, which is the basic financial education. Then I'm going to do tier 2, then tier 3, which will be a monthly fee, and tier 4. You will not have to pay for the same information you already have, because that way when people come after you, they can go like, hey, I can do tier 1, I can do tier 2, or I can do tier 3, or I can do tier 4. And it'll already be set up, because like I said, I've learned from setting up these courses how to do this. So once again, that is below. And just think about it. Would you rather live off of 10% of 10 million or 4% of a million? Put your answers in the comment section. I really want to know, because one of my Facebook friends actually posted this, and I thought it was just crazy. That people are so drunk on credit, and I should say American people, that folks would rather have a high credit score of 850 than $600,000 in cash. You could tank my credit for $600K. $600K, I get that back so quick. $600K cash money, that is money within 5 to 10 years you could turn to millions, where you could pay cash for everything, like a house. But people are so drunk on that credit score, it's ridiculous. Anywho, I'll see you guys in the next video. Today we're going to talk about stage 1, the process. There's 1, 2, and what we're going to do today is get into the details. There's section 1, well, the first level. If you don't clean this stuff up, it's always going to dog you. You have these obligations, these things that he went through. Pretty much what I dealt with a lot of this stuff when I didn't have any I want you to be in a position where money doesn't matter, and why you need to reformat your mental, where you understand that I'm going to talk about some very real stuff. You hear many people who's like, it doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter. Money doesn't buy half. Most of those sentiments ways into you get a discount. Money is always on your mind when you don't have it, or you don't have enough. By myself, let me let you on the inside of my mental. I had an attorney who wasn't, just pretty much not doing anything that I wanted. So I got rid of him and I took over my case, and I had a fundamental concept. I'm going to win. But once again, how did I even get into this position? So let me just walk you through what happens to the typical man that finds himself in this situation. It begins to impact your overall financial life. So you really don't have the ability to address your case in the manner that you want to, even if you have an attorney, because once again, are you going to have the best of the best of the best attorneys, or are you just going to have some attorney? The more complicated your case is, the more likely your ability to fight your case and not be concerned about money. That was my situation. And the online me, I was able to fight my case and win. I was able to devote hours and hours and hours on with cancer, chronic illnesses. They don't have a check, and at some point this is going to impact their benefits. When you live paycheck to paycheck, you have put yourself in a position of extreme duress, because money is always on your mind. It's everything, because when you don't have money, money is everything. Once you can pull money out of the process and look at what makes you happy, what makes you healthy, what gives you enjoyment, what gives you freedom, it's a different ball game. But as long as you're looking at money from this quote, done well or reached their level of financial independence, it always comes back to, do I need this sports car? I don't really need to live in this 5,000 square foot house. I really don't need to take these fancy vacations. It always comes down to, do I need these things to live? Do I need these things to be happy? Because it's a financial choice. It's a financial decision. Because money, when you don't have it, is everything. And many of these people who have, quote, reached financial independence live